What's up, guys? I'm Deepak. Welcome back to My Theology, where we dissect ancient myths and try to make sense of them. I'm starting this new series called Of Monsters and Men, where we look at the so-called villains in mythology. So let's kick this off with the most infamous villains in Indian mythology, the Asuras. So people use the term Asuras very loosely to mean monsters or malevolent beings, but that's pretty racist.
Now, if you have any interest in world mythology, you'll probably know that there are a few recurring themes in the concept of creation. One of them is the idea that the world consists of an undifferentiated mass of water with the earth floating on it, and then all beings originate from one precursor being. It's the same in Hindu mythology. Here, the creator is called Brahma. He created several mind-born children. One of them, Marichi, had a son, Kashyap. We're interested in three of his wives, Danu, Diti and Aditi. Yep, polygamy was trending back then. Diti represents the earth and her children are called the Daityas. Danu represents water or rain and her children the Danavas. The Daityas and Danavas resided within the earth and were a part of the first stage of creation. Together they were called the Asuras and were the gods of the primordial world. Interestingly, there's also a Celtic goddess, Danu, who's the mother of ancient Irish gods. She is also associated with land, rivers and fertility. In fact, Europe's second longest river, Danube, is said to be named after her. Coincidence? I don't think so, and as we move on, we'll see more such connections. But coming back to Kashyap's wife, Aditi is the opposite of Diti. She symbolizes the limitless sky and is one of the earliest sky goddesses of the Hindu pantheon. So, it's no surprise that her children, the Adityas, are celestial gods. The Adityas are also known as the Devas. But in the primordial world, the sky was laying upon the earth, and during the second stage of creation, Indra, the king of the Devas and the god of thunder, props up the sky, and in doing so, he creates the duality of heaven and earth.
After this, the upper world becomes that of the Devas and the underworld that of the Asuras. However, a few important Asuras like Varuna, Mitra, Soma, Agni move over to the side of the Devas. This theme of the younger gods overthrowing the older gods is said to have been borrowed by the Greeks, in which the Olympians overthrow the Titans. Zeus, who's also a god of thunder, who's also the king of gods. Ring any bells? Anyways, there's no mention of good or evil so far, but things start to get a little bit more convoluted as time progresses. If we look at the Rig Veda, one of the oldest Indian scriptures, actually it's probably one of the oldest scriptures from around the world, the term Asura is used to describe a chief, somebody who has a fighting force at his disposal, or somebody who could wield Maya or magic. The term was actually used to describe either a human or a god, but an important thing to note here is that it was never used in the plural form. That is, there was never an organized group of people called the Asuras. Now, a lot can be said about the meaning and origin of a Sanskrit word if you break it up and look at its individual components. One way to break up the word Asura is Asura. Asu means life power or spiritual, so an Asura was somebody who possessed Asu. This could describe somebody who's maybe immortal or had the ability to heal. Another way to break up Asura is Asura. Is a Sanskrit prefix that means not, just like un in English, like you have fair and unfair. But in this case, it happens the other way around. As Asura starts to have a negative connotation in later scriptures, a new word, Sura, is coined to express the opposite of that. Where Asura starts to become the personification of darkness and evil, Sura became the personification of light and divinity. And henceforth, you can see the two words, Sura and Deva, being used interchangeably to describe the good deities. To further drive home this new breakup of the word, you can see an altogether new legend start to crop up. According to this story, the sons of Danu, Diti and Aditi together churned the ocean of milk to gain treasures that would make them immortal. One of the treasures that emerged was Sura, the goddess of alcohol. According to the legend, since the Adityas were the only ones to accept and embrace Sura, they came to be known as the Suras. Since the Danavas and Daityas rejected Sura, they became the Asuras. Now we're on the subject of wordplay. Let's look at how similar words were used in other Indo-European languages.
In Latin, Erus means the master of a family. In Hittite, Hasus means king. In Germanic languages, Onsis or Aesir describe deities. By the way, your favorite Asgardian Avenger, Thor, is an Aesir. In Avestan, a language used in Zoroastrian scriptures, Ahura means high god. So why did the word evolve to mean demons in India when they're considered gods in other places? Well, let's look at the Avestan example. There is a hypothesis that at some point in history there was a group of gods called the Asuras and a cult of Asura worshippers. This group of people could have split and settled down in different places. One settled in ancient India and the other one in ancient Persia and worshipped a god named Ahura Mazda. Later on, these groups of people could have had clashes, and you can imagine when the Indians discovered that their enemies worshipped Ahura, they gradually started to associate that word with demons. Interestingly, the word demon itself had a weirdly similar fate. Demon originates from the Greek word daimon, which refers to a benevolent nature spirit. Sounds cute, right? But we all know what it means today.
So, after discussing all of this and traveling to Iran and Ireland, the question still remains, who is an Asura? Well, that depends. What era are we talking about? In the early Vedic times, an Asura is considered a powerful being. In the Puranic times, they're considered a separate clan, but their nature is still ambiguous. For example, the Asura kings Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha are considered power-seeking and evil. But further down the same lineage, Prahlad and Mahabali are seen as generous and benevolent kings. In the Mahabharata and Ramayana, however, the Asuras get blacklisted big time. And I'm not suggesting that the Asuras didn't do anything bad, but it's kind of unfair to stereotype the entire clan based on that. The Devas weren't always good either. Plus, these accounts were passed down by word of mouth for millennia before they were finally written down about 5,000 years ago. And even then, they were written in an ancient language, and depending on who translated it, its meaning could vary a lot. There's also speculation that all of this is symbolic and not meant to be taken literally. For example, for the farmers, the Asuras could have represented the minerals and nutrients that lived within the earth, which then had to be killed for them to harvest the crops and gain wealth. The Devas could have been the sunlight and rain that blessed their lands. But does this mean that one is superior to the other? No, but it does explain why a lot of the harvest festivals in India celebrate the killing of an Asura. According to the Bhagavad Gita, the Asuras and Devas all reside within each and every one of us, and the constant battle between them represents our internal conflict between our opposing natures. The more righteous you are, the more Deva you are, and vice versa. In the next video, I'll dive further into the actions of the kings Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, and we'll see if they were really justified. But until next time, ciao!